July 12, 1943. Hundreds of tanks charge across the Prokhorovka steppe, colliding at point-blank range. Crews bail from burning hulks, only to be gunned down by machine gun fire. Shells scream overhead, the earth shakes. This is the Battle of Kursk, reaching its climax, where the largest tank battle in human history grinds thousands of men into the mud. But let's change one thing. Rolling through the smoke and chaos on the German southern flank is something no one understands. A 59-ton steel Predator with angles that don't belong in 1943. A gun barrel longer than any tank cannon ever built. Sensors that can see through darkness itself. It's a Rheinmetall KF-51 Panther, Germany's most advanced super tank from 2025, dropped into a battle it was never meant to fight. The Soviet tankers charging across those fields have never seen anything like it. Neither have the German SS troops watching from their positions. It doesn't match any silhouette in any recognition manual. The radio frequencies it transmits on won't be invented for another 80 years. The fuel in its tanks doesn't exist yet. The ammunition it carries can't be resupplied. It's completely alone. So, what happens when the most advanced main battle tank on Earth is unleashed during one of history's most brutal armored engagements? Can it single-handedly turn the tide for Germany? Or is it just one tank against 2 million Soviet soldiers and 7,000 T-34s? First, let's look at exactly what just materialized on the Eastern Front. The KF-51 Panther represents everything German engineers have learned about tank warfare over 80 years. It weighs 59 tons and sits lower than its World War II counterpart, with sloped composite armor that makes the original Panther's steel plates look like aluminum foil. A 1,500 horsepower diesel engine pushes it to 43 miles per hour on roads, faster than most sports cars of 1943. Its main weapon is a 130mm smoothbore cannon, the biggest gun ever mounted on a NATO tank. This beast fires armor-piercing rounds at velocities that would make a Tiger crew weak. How far can it kill? Where a 1943 tank might hit targets at a kilometer, the KF-51 can kill at 4 kilometers with computer-guided precision. An autoloader feeds shells into the breech, letting a 3-man crew pump out rounds faster than any human loader could manage. But the real advantage is its vision. Thermal imaging lets the crew see through smoke, dust, and total darkness. A 360-degree camera system means they can fight with perfect awareness of their surroundings. In an era where tank commanders stand exposed in their hatches just to see the battlefield, this is like fighting blind men. And if something does get close enough to shoot back, the Panther carries an active protection system that can detect and intercept incoming projectiles. It can pop smoke screens automatically when targeted. The armor itself combines steel, composites, and reactive elements designed to defeat weapons that won't exist for decades. But there's a catch. The Panther carries 30 rounds of ammunition, no more. There's no supply line, no depot behind German lines that stocks 130mm shells. The tank carries fuel for roughly 450 kilometers. And when it runs dry, there's no tanker truck with diesel from 2025. The crew is unable to radio German commanders because the frequencies don't match. They're fighting blind, cut off, alone. Now, let's look at what's trying to kill it. The Soviet 5th Guards tank army is charging across these fields with nearly 1,000 armored vehicles. 34 medium tanks form the backbone, each mounting a 76mm gun that can penetrate about 70mm of armor at 500 meters. Behind them roll KV-1 heavy tanks with thicker armor and bigger guns. Su-152 assault guns lumber forward, their massive 152mm howitzers designed to crack open German bunkers. And they're not alone. The Soviets at Kursk combined tanks with waves of infantry, anti-tank guns positioned in depth, and the dreaded Il-2 Sturmovik attack planes, circling overhead like steel vultures. The Red Army has spent months preparing for this battle. They've dug 8 defensive lines, buried 900,000 mines, and positioned thousands of artillery pieces to turn any breakthrough into a killing ground. The Soviets also have something the Germans lack: numbers they can afford to lose. For every tank the KF-51 destroys, 10 more wait in reserve. The factories behind the Urals are churning out T-34s faster than Germany can build anything. 1 Predator, 1,000 Wolves, 4 kilometers of open steppe between them. And that leads to the moment when dawn breaks over Prokhorovka, and these two forces collide. Dawn breaks over Prokhorovka. Soviet tank columns begin their charge across the open steppe, expecting to meet the battered remnants of the SS Panzer divisions. Instead, the lead T-34 commander spots something strange through his periscope: a single tank, unlike anything in any recognition manual, sitting hull down on a ridge 2 kilometers away. He never finishes his report. A 130mm round crosses the distance in less than a second and turns his tank into a fireball. The Soviet column doesn't even know where the shot came from. Their crews are trained to engage at ranges under a kilometer. The KF-51 is killing them from distances they can't see clearly. A second T-34 explodes, then a third. The autoloader cycles smoothly as the Panther's gunner works through targets with mechanical efficiency. Each trigger pull is a death sentence. The optics turn the battlefield into a shooting gallery. Every enemy vehicle glows white-hot against the cool morning earth. The gunner doesn't need to guess, doesn't need to wait for muzzle flashes. He just points and fires. Soviet commanders respond the way they've been trained. They order the charge to continue, close the distance, overwhelm the enemy with numbers. Hundreds of tanks surge forward, engines roaring, treads chewing through the summer grass. Dust clouds rise behind the advancing formation. To the Soviet tankers, this looks like every other breakthrough they've executed. Charge forward, absorb casualties, crush the enemy under sheer weight. They have no idea what they're charging into. The KF-51 crew watches the wave approach through their displays. They have time. Time to breathe. Time to select targets. Time to engage dozens of enemy vehicles before the Soviets get within effective range. The main gun barks again and again. T-34s brew up in chains across the steppe. A KV-1 takes a round through the turret and detonates like an ammunition dump. An Su-152 tries to reverse behind a hill. The Panther's gunner puts a shell through its engine compartment before it clears the crest. 15 tanks destroyed. 20. 25. The Panther's commander makes the call to displace. The tank reverses off the ridge and accelerates to speeds that would leave any pursuing Soviet vehicle in the dust. 60 kilometers per hour across rough terrain, faster than any T-34 can manage, even on flat ground. The suspension absorbs most of the impacts, letting the crew maintain focus on targeting. They relocate to a new position, 300 meters south, flank the Soviet advance, resume firing from an unexpected angle. This is where modern doctrine shines. Shoot and scoot. Never stay in one position long enough to be targeted. Use superior mobility and sensors to dictate the terms of engagement. The Soviets are fighting World War II. The Panther's fighting a war that hasn't been invented yet. Soviet losses mount horrifically. Commanders radio desperate reports of an enemy that strikes from nowhere and vanishes before they can respond. One moment their formation is intact. The next, 3 tanks in the center column are burning, and no one saw the shot. Some crews refuse to advance. Others abandon their vehicles and flee on foot. The psychological effect of facing an invincible enemy begins to fracture unit cohesion. 33 Soviet tanks destroyed. 37, 41. The Panther relocates again, finds new firing positions, continues the slaughter. The crew operates with cold efficiency. Identify, range, fire, confirm kill, next target. The gunner's voice is flat, mechanical. Target destroyed. Next target. The commander scans for threats. The driver maneuvers between positions like he's racing on the Autobahn. 12 rounds remaining. 10. 8. Soviet artillery observers finally start adjusting their fire. They don't know where the Panther is, but they know where the shots are coming from. 152mm shells begin falling in the general area. The KF-51's armor can handle near misses, but the crew knows they need to keep moving. They displace again. 6 rounds left. 4. The Soviets keep coming. Fresh columns appear from the north. Reserves pouring into the battle. For every tank the Panther destroys, it seems like 2 more take its place. But Soviet commanders see the pattern, and patterns can be broken. 10:30. Artillery observers finally triangulate the Panther's general position. Batteries of 152mm howitzers begin saturating the area with high explosive shells. The KF-51's armor can shrug off nearby blasts, but direct hits threaten to damage external systems, blind cameras, or throw tracks. The crew has to keep moving, burning precious fuel. Meanwhile, Soviet commanders realize something crucial. The Demon tank is alone. There's no supporting infantry, no supply line, no reinforcements. If they can pin it down, they can overwhelm it. The strategy shifts. They send T-34s in sacrificial waves, not to kill the Panther, but to fix its position and force it to burn ammunition. The Soviet tankers know they're driving to their deaths. They do it anyway. Orders are orders. Close the distance, make the enemy shoot. Die if you must, but make them waste shells doing it. The Panther fires twice more as it maneuvers. 2 more T-34s explode. 3 rounds left. 2. 1. Infantry teams with anti-tank grenades infiltrate through draws and gullies. They move low, using every fold in the terrain. The Panther's thermal imaging can see them, but they're scattered, dispersed. Dozens of two-man teams creeping forward from multiple directions. Il-2 Sturmovix make strafing runs overhead. The attack planes dive low, dropping PTAB anti-tank cluster bombs across the Panther's escape routes. The bombs carpet the steppe with dozens of small, shaped charges. Each one punches through a T-34's top armor like paper. Against the Panther, they're less effective. But they don't need to penetrate, they just need to hem it in. The KF-51's active protection system engages incoming rockets. Small explosions ripple around the tank as the defensive charges detonate, destroying projectiles mid-flight. But the system was designed for guided missiles with predictable trajectories, not swarms of unguided projectiles coming from every direction at once. The smoke dispensers fire automatically. Gray clouds billow around the Panther, obscuring it from visual targeting. The crew maneuvers through their own smoke screen, relying on thermal imaging to navigate. But the smoke that blinds the enemy also marks their position. Soviet artillery adjusts fire. More shells scream in. The machine guns chatter. The remote weapon station swivels and fires, cutting down Soviet infantry as they sprint across open ground. Bodies fall. More keep coming. The Panther's crew fights with desperate skill, but they're being forced into a smaller and smaller area of maneuver. 12:45. Then the main gun goes silent. 30 rounds expended. The most powerful tank cannon in history is reduced to a multi-million-dollar steel tube. The Panther still has its coaxial machine gun. It still has speed and armor, but it can no longer kill tanks, and the Soviets know it. The charging T-34s that were hanging back, afraid to close, suddenly accelerate. Commanders realize the fire has slackened. The demon has stopped killing. Whatever advantage it had, it's gone now. They close in from every direction. T-34s finally reach ranges where their 76mm guns might, just might, penetrate the Panther's side armor. The first Soviet shell to connect bounces off harmlessly, ricocheting into the sky. The crew barely feels it. The second finds a track link. The impact tears apart the track linkage. The KF-51 lurches violently to the left as the damaged track starts to separate. The driver fights the controls, trying to keep the tank mobile, but the third Soviet shell follows immediately after, hitting the same track assembly. The tread snaps completely and whips away from the road wheels. The Panther grinds to a stop, one side immobilized. The driver guns the engine. The right track spins uselessly. They're not moving. Without movement, a tank is just an expensive pillbox, and pillboxes die. Soviet infantry swarm from concealment, dozens of them, running low, closing the final 100 meters. The remote weapon station rotates and fires in short, controlled bursts. Men fall, but they keep coming. A satchel charge arcs through the air and lands on the engine deck. The explosion is massive. The blast wave rocks the entire tank. Armor plating designed to deflect kinetic penetrators can't stop 12 kilograms of TNT detonating on contact. The charge breaches the rear armor and ignites the fuel tanks. Fire erupts from the engine compartment. The crew has seconds to bail out. They make it, barely. Smoke blackened, ears ringing. They stumble away from the burning wreck as Soviet infantry close in. Behind them, the KF-51 Panther burns, the most advanced tank on Earth reduced to scrap metal on a Russian steppe. In the end, the Panther destroys an estimated 47 Soviet tanks and armored vehicles before its ammunition runs dry. It survives for approximately 6 hours of continuous combat. 6 hours that Soviet engineers will spend years trying to understand from the wreckage. 47 kills, more than any single tank in the actual history of Kursk. More than most entire platoons achieved during the real battle. The crew fought with skills and technology that wouldn't exist for another 80 years, and they used every advantage they had. But could a single super tank from the modern day change the outcome? Not a chance. The Battle of Kursk still ends in Soviet victory. The Red Army begins its long march to Berlin. One super tank, no matter how advanced, cannot substitute for divisions, supply lines, and strategic depth. The math is brutal. 47 tanks destroyed out of 7,000 is less than 1%. The Soviets lost more vehicles to mechanical breakdowns than to the Panther. The factories beyond the Urals replaced those losses in days. The crew of the KF-51 killed more enemies in 6 hours than seemed possible. And it didn't matter, because wars aren't decided by individual battles. They're decided by economies, logistics, and the ability to replace losses faster than the enemy can inflict them. Germany in 1943 is already losing that war. One miracle weapon doesn't change it. The Panther's crew came seeking revenge, but they found only the lesson every army eventually learns. Wars aren't won by weapons alone. They're won by the soldiers who keep fighting after those weapons run out of ammo.
Or what do you think? Could 10 Panthers have changed Kursk?
Thanks for watching.